Hi, Siri. I'm looking for a new podcast, one that preferably is hosted by a UF Hall of Famer, one that airs every weekday that would bring me everything I need to know about the Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions. Siri, is there such a show?
Have you heard of PodUp with Matthews in the morning on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or any podcast platform?
Oh my gosh, why didn't I think of that? UF Hall of Famer Shane Matthews has a show every weekday. I'm gonna go check it out tomorrow. Thanks, Siri.
Good morning, a live edition of PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the International Diamond Center studios. We got a great show lined up for you today. We'll have JC momentarily. Kevin Brockway from the Gainesville Sun recap just destroying the Oklahoma Sooners in the O'Connell Center last night. This team continues to play at a very, very high level. And I think 5 games left in the regular season. And keep heading for that #1 overall seed.
Yeah.
For all the baseball fans out there that bitched and complained about midweek games last year, Gators beat the JU Dolphins last night in a midweek game. So congratulations to them. Maybe we'll win those this year. JC, you're on the Tatum-Moore hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. What's happening?
I'm just waking up, bro. I mean, my God. It's I don't know what it is, the barometric pressure, the rain, or what the hell's going on out there.
Did you stay up late watching the West Coast basketball games or something?
I must have. I did watch Florida's backcourt just dominate a basketball game, between Clayton, Richard, and Martin. I think you had something like, 46 points combined between all of those guys, and that accounted for more than half the points that the Gators scored. And we're doing it here without Alex Condon for the second game, which is fine because as well as Sam Alexis. But, even though they're in protective boots, nobody should worry. These guys will be back and they'll play. And it's great to see Micah Handel-Ogden in his second game back since breaking his left leg last March, at least get in there and finish with 2 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists and a block. Because when that horrific thing happened to Micah, you didn't know if he was going to ever come back. And here he is back and playing for the Florida Fighting Gators. This is Oklahoma's 5th straight loss. They suck. They're absolutely awful. I don't see them playing in the postseason, at least in the NCAA tournament, maybe the NIT. So this was a win that Florida certainly was expected to get. It was good to rest these guys, to rest. Obviously, you had to rest the players with the boots there. And I'm just trying to put it all together right now at 8:04.
Do you know where Oklahoma was picked to finish in the preseason SEC polls, JC?
I think they were pretty high, weren't they?
No, they're picked to finish second to last.
That would be very low. Well, regardless, they've had a rough, ever since the University of Oklahoma, or Oklahoma University, as it says on their helmet with the OU, ever since they joined.
And on their basketball shorts, it had OU too.
Yeah,
that's their logo.
Ever since they joined this fair little league of ours, it's been an absolute nightmare unless you play softball. So, and maybe gymnastics, I don't know. But basketball, football has been awful for Oklahoma since joining the SEC.
Well, they've been there 1 year, JC.
I don't care. It's just been awful. And they would have done better playing in the Big 12, if you ask me. Maybe not.
Maybe not. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe not. Who knows?
All right, we got a text here on the Titan-Moore text line from Chris in Cottondale. It says, "Tell JC he can't hoot. He can't hoot with the Owls at night and expect to soar with the Eagles in the morning. Get some rest so he can perform on the show."
Hey, I just gave you a nice little rundown there on the basketball game, but Chris is right, man. It was, I don't know. I think it's the jet lag. It's traveling, everything. It's crazy.
How about the A&M, boy? They took it on the chin last night at the Hump.
Yeah.
Big win for Mississippi State against a top 10 team.
Mississippi State's won 2. They've won 2 straight games now, probably playing their best basketball. And I don't know where it's come from because they were god-awful before they went to Mississippi over the weekend. But Josh Hubbard, I think, is the answer there. He's woken up. He has scored 25 points, had 4 steals and 4 assists last night for the Dogs. And they needed that because they needed a really good win, and they got it against the 7th-ranked team in the country by 16 points. The game was close at halftime. This is what I watched last night. I watched some of this, and then when the Florida game was out of control, I watched the rest of this game. And Josh Hubbard is actually starting to wake up and score points. That they have to have production from him, and they outscored Texas A&M after trailing by a point at halftime by 17 points in the second half. So they absolutely just destroyed the Aggies. And, here's you and I, JC and QB, hyping up those Texas Aggies as if they're actually going to do something special this year. And they still are. They're a very good team. They're a very good
JC,
team.
Just because
they're a very good
don't
team.
don't be like the regular fan
I know,
because you lose one game.
Dude,
they're a top 10 team.
Yes, they are. They are. I know that. And, how about Purdue? Second straight loss for the Boilers in the Big Ten. Michigan State handles them by 9 points last night. Texas Tech, the 9th-ranked team in the country, loses to unranked Texas Christian 69-66. That's a 3-point loss. And Iowa State, the 8th-ranked team in the country, as well as Wisconsin. Those are two teams to keep your eye on. Wisconsin's ranked 11th. They can score points. I've never seen a Wisconsin team score points like this. They got 95 last night. And then, of course, the Houston Cougars do what they usually do. They won by 15 on the road in the Big 12. So a good night of basketball tonight. We've got another good night of basketball, 3 games in the league. Kentucky hosting Vanderbilt, Auburn hosting Arkansas. That should be an easy one for them. And then Alabama is going to have a challenge tonight at Missouri. That's the 9 o'clock game. And that's going to be difficult. I think you're going to see a lot of points.
They're an underdog, JC. Do you know that?
They're an underdog, getting 1.5. The total is 169.5. Look for a lot of points in that game as these teams run up and down the court. I don't think 169.5 is enough. Take the over.
Yeah, Kanye Ron says on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, Kansas got killed by BYU. Kansas is not very good.
Blown out. They got absolutely embarrassed. And I agree with you. Kansas is slumping. Very surprising, too. I really thought they had a Dickinson's a good player, 14 rebounds, 12 points, but he and the rest of them lose by, my God, they lost by 34 points to BYU. You know what that's called, QB? That's called quitting. They just absolutely quit up there.
They're not very good. If you look at their record, they've lost a ton of games this year. 34
points, QB. They may have lost a ton of games, and they have lost 9 games now, but they were ranked 23rd in the country. And you don't lose by, my God, 34 points, QB.
Well, JC, they were ranked in the top 5 at the beginning of the year. I'm just telling you, they're not very good. That's my point.
Yeah.
If you're not very good, you lose by 30-something points. They are going in the wrong direction. Andy's question on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel Law, is: do you think fans underestimate how well Golden and his staff manage playing time and situations? I don't know if fans really pay attention to that kind of stuff, quite honestly, Andy. All they care about is just watching the game if we win or lose. I think Todd Golden's an excellent coach. I think he's got a great staff. I think they do a lot of things very, very well. So leave it at that.
Well, what I liked is that they played at times without Clayton. They've played at times without Condon and Martin, and they've played at times without Sam Alexis. And during this current streak, other kids have stepped up. We saw the Slovenian come in and just fill it up from downtown when we needed him. And so, Urban. So, this is just an example of the depth that this team has. And when you have this kind of depth and you go 12 of 32 from the arc, that right there is 36 points. That's important because that's what Alabama does when they beat you. They score. The numbers are just the numbers. When you hit from outside the arc, you're always going to have an advantage. And if you do it over 10 times, that's right there, over 30 points in your total. So that is amazing. And, listen, he's got 5, I think, straight games, the Gators, Todd Golden's team. 5 straight games, I think, that they have hit double-digit threes. Did you hear what I said there, QB? Because I guarantee you Kevin Brockway going to say it, and you're going to say, wow, that's something else. Well, I'm telling you right now.
No, so, JC, I know you listen to the show when you're not on here, and I had a conversation with Chris Harry yesterday.
Uh-huh.
We went back to our conversation when we played the Tulane Green Wave in the Gasparilla Bowl, which was before Christmas, I believe, like December 19th.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
I sat there and told Chris Harry that this was the best basketball team that Florida's ever had.
Ooh.
And that's what my eyes told me. My eyes still tell me they're the best basketball team. That doesn't mean they're going to win the national title, because there's been multiple sports teams at different universities and professional sports. The best teams don't always win.
Right.
But I'm telling you right now, in my opinion, this team is the best I've ever seen at the University of Florida.
Well, I hope they go far, and certainly they can have that special label attached to them if they win maybe a championship. And
even if they don't win the championship, I still think it's the best team, because JC, here's why I say that. They're deep, they're extremely athletic, they can shoot. Okay, those are all very important ingredients for a basketball team. And they've played the most difficult SEC schedule in the history of the conference, and they're blowing people out.
Yeah. It is an impressive. It's a very impressive.
Again, I want to respond to Mike here. I'm not taking anything away from the 06, 07. They went back to back, but you're comparing what those guys did as pros. You know, people are like, well, we had Al Horford. They went on to be NBA players. Okay, get the NBA career out of your head. Just think about how they played under Billy Donovan, and they were outstanding. They played a different style of play, first of all. They beat teams, 65 to 60, things like that. I just think, personally, everybody has their own opinions. I think this team, as I said, better shooters, more athletic, and deeper.
And, I think the deeper part of it is the important thing. And yes, those teams had great players with Corey Brewer coming off the bench and Chris Richard and so forth. But this team, 10 second half points, 10 second chance points, 28 points in the paint last night. So you get 28 points in the paint and you get 36 points behind the arc. So 36 and 28 equals 64. So that is a lot of points. That is not, 10, 15 feet type stuff. That's the formula, I think, that Nate Oates has at Alabama. And when you put that kind of number on the board, inside and out, you are almost impossible to beat. And Florida's shooting percentages are just really off the charts. I'm just really impressed. It doesn't come down to free throws, because when you're winning by 29 points, nobody cares about free throws. And that's the amazing thing. Listen, they had the Tennessee Volunteers down 30 points in this building. They had the Auburn freaking Tigers. They were down over 15 points in the second half, for a long period of time in that game at Auburn. You're right. I mean, they're blowing people's asses out. And I just hope that this thing continues, and this kind of thing will continue as long as these guys stay healthy, I think. So you're looking at
it's going to continue. I mean, you got to, if we make shots, nobody's going to beat us. It's that simple. You got premier guard play. So anyway, real quick, QC Kinetics for long-lasting relief. Those surgery drugs are downtime. Schedule a free consultation at QC Kinetics. JC, before we get to our Peachland Dental golf picks, they're in Mexico this week. This Day in Sports is brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Put some star power to work in your financial life. Campus USA Credit Union. This day in 1965, the National Football League, as the sixth official, the line judge. I know everybody was very excited to hear that today, but that's This Day in Sports, brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union.
Well, I don't know if I could have gone on with my day without.
Okay. Again, I don't think people understand. North Florida Bears says, can you do it in March? Back-to-back champs. Look at those games. Those six boys were clutch, best ever. Okay, I'm not arguing with that. But athletically and shooting, I don't see it. I think this team's better. That's my personal opinion. And do they have to win a national championship for me to disagree with my opinion? No, they don't. Because, as I said yesterday, I think one of the best teams I've ever seen at the University of Florida in football was 2001, Coach Spurrier's last team. They didn't win anything. They didn't win the SEC. But I think they're maybe his best team he had. So, anyway. Tommy says, I hate Houston. Might be in our side of the bracket. Houston has great guard. Houston's, you don't want to, I do not want to play the Houston Cougars at all.
Well, listen, when you get to the tournament, that's when you're going to find out. everything about your team. I mean, it's one thing to blow out Oklahoma and Ole Miss and people like that, but it's a different thing when you're
We
playing.
haven't played Ole Miss, JC. Ole Miss is a ranked team.
Whatever, QB. I'm just saying it's one thing to blow out Oklahoma and South Carolina. Okay, how's that? But it's another thing to play on.
You're talking out of both sides of your mouth. You just talked about us blowing out Tennessee, blowing out Auburn.
Well, I am.
Those are top teams in America.
Right, yeah,
this
but
team
QB,
is damn good.
QB, just hold on a minute. You're very excited this morning. I like the energy. I really do. But what I'm trying to say here is that when you're in a tournament setting on a neutral court, 700 miles away from home, it is different than playing in the SEC. Whether it's harder or not, I don't know. It's probably not as hard as playing at Tennessee or at Auburn. But that game at Tennessee did happen. That could happen in the NCAA tournament. So before you turn these guys into the Boston Celtics, just keep in mind that we're running hot right now, but it's still a long road ahead, QB.
You obviously never listen to my program and how
I have always listened to your program.
I talk about you're going to lose games in basketball.
Right.
Could that happen in the second round of the NCAA tournament? Absolutely, it could. It's not going to change my opinion of this team of what they've done in the body of work. It will never change my opinion.
You have to include body of work when you define a team as part of the tournament. Yeah, I mean, you can't just ignore that. So what?
Okay, so let's go back to Jim Valvano's NC State Wolfpack. They were not very good, and they won the national title.
Well, then let's go to the Fly Slamma Jamma. What did they win? So I mean,
they didn't win anything. They were damn good, though.
Right. So would you say that it was better for the University of Houston to have Phi Slamma Jamma, or was it better for NC State to have the Wolfpack that year with Jimmy V? I think I'd take the latter. I don't care about athletes. Okay, athletes are great.
Let me put this in football terms. Has Alabama had great football teams that did not win the national title?
Yes, but they always had great football teams.
No. Okay, but did they lose to teams that weren't as good as they were
in the national championship? Maybe. I'd have to go back and check.
Okay, how about in the Final Four? Regardless, you can argue these silly points. I'm just telling you the teams that I see, and I feel like I'm a pretty good judge of talent. Perry Mason says, Shane, you're absolutely correct. Rex team was so good to get beat by a very mediocre Tennessee team in the Swamp. Yeah, they win that game and win a national title, but they got beat. It just happens. That's sports. All right, let's get to this day. Well, hang on real quick. This text on the Titan Mar text line says, Cavs is a better shooter than Lee, and he's coming off the bench.
All right, that's fine. Lee Humphrey. Well, I don't really care about that. I just think that this team has something. Let's just pump the brakes and get excited about the fact that they have something very exciting ahead of them. In all likelihood, they're going to be highly seeded, and they can have a chance to make this a special year. It will not be a special year, in spite of the fact that you may think they're the best team ever, if they don't go deep in the tournament. That's a fact. That's my fact. The facts that I live with are the facts driven by results. Those are my facts. I don't need an Olympic team running up and down the court that can't win the big game. That's what I need. In my world, it's about what's hanging from that roof. Okay, that's what it's about for me. What would the 90?
Right.
Okay. You got a thing painted on the stadium. You got a thing painted on the stadium that says SEC, best in the SEC, because the NCAA screwed you guys in 91 or something. So, I mean, I get that, but you got to have some results to accompany.
But JC, again, when people start comparing teams, like current teams to past teams, you have proof of what that team has done. So it's over with.
Yeah.
Okay. I look at it from what my eyes tell me when I compare. And comparing the athlete today to back then is not fair, because the athletes today, I think, are better than those.
Mm-hmm.
I personally, again, whether I'm right or wrong, and I don't give a damn because it's my opinion, I think this team, as I said, shoots the ball better, more athletic, and deeper. Okay. Enough of that. Let's go to golf. We've already done it. Peaceland Dental, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry, Port Charlotte, surrounding areas. Go visit them at peacelanddental.com. So, hey, I want to bring up something real quick, JC.
Go ahead.
Do you think the Miami Dolphins the only undefeated team in the National Football League in the history of the league is the best football team of all time.
No, I don't think that. No.
Okay, there's my point. There's my point.
Well, but they
everybody just thinks because they went undefeated and won the Super Bowl, whatever it was back then, they are nowhere near the best team ever. So,
no.
All right, who you got, JC, for your first pick in the Mexico event?
At Vedanta World. And I got to think that, I really haven't taken it very seriously, this golf yet, because these
obviously because you haven't been writing it down.
No, well, all right. Well, Zach's going to take care of some of our Zach's going to take care of some of our bookkeeping. But what I'm trying to say is that last week, I didn't even think about Ludwig Oberg. I listened to a guy pick some of these golfers on the top 5, top 10 rundowns that he had for his wagering on the weekend, and he included Ludwig Oberg and a couple players. I did have Justin Thomas though, but the point is that I'm going to start really handicapping this a little bit closer right now.
Or are you gonna give us his picks? Is what you're going to do?
No, because he comes on after we do. Since we do this on Wednesday, he comes on.
Oh.
He comes on Thursday or Friday or something, but he's really good. I mean, he had Ludwig last week. So, and he gave reasons for it. Ludwig is long and blah, 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 blah. All right. Matteo Manacero is world ranked 102. This is the kind of tournament that he will play well in because he loves this kind of course. And I don't want to go and bore you with all the details why, but give me Matteo Manacero. How about that?
All right, I'm going to go with Aaron Rye. The
Brit, the Englishman.
Mm-hmm. He looks nothing like an Englishman, though.
No, he really does not. But he is an Englishman. Okay. All right. I'm going to take an American here. And again, another highly ranked guy that you probably don't expect to do well, but could just break through. And that's Carson Young.
Carson Young. All right. I will take Eric Van Rooyen.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my picks there too. I think you got to look outside the box in these kinds of tournaments because the big names are kind of missing from this as they transition over to the East Coast for the month of March.
They're too busy playing the silly indoor golf.
Yeah, I tell you what, QB, somehow I fell on that for about 13 seconds last night, and the battery on my remote was low power, and it was forcing me to watch Ricky Fowler pretend to hit a golf shot as it went into some screen or he swung, and I got so upset with it that I physically got up and turned the channel with my finger. That just angers me. It's just I don't know what it is about that stuff, but it just bothers me to no end watching these supremely talented people play in their little bedrooms these games. And it was on TV. That's what I think bothers me the most is that kind of shit's on TV. Francesco Molinari.
Are they playing? Are you taking Francesco Molinari?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to take Justin Lauer. Justin Lauer.
Okay.
I was going to ask you, JC. I know you don't follow it because I don't either, and probably our listeners do. How much money are these guys playing for in the indoor league?
Yeah, that's, again, something I wouldn't be able to tell you because the fact that it's even on is just insulting to me. I don't know why it bothers me so much. Why does it bother me, QB? It's just guys are playing. Oh, Francesco.
JC is taking Francesco Molinari.
Why does it bother me so much that these guys are doing this and taking time to do this and it's being on television?
Well, it's because, Tiger and Rory, this is their deal. So they got a lot of each team has an owner. Do you know that? Arthur Blank owns that team that Billy Horschel, the Atlanta team. Arthur Blank is the owner.
I did not know that. No, I did not.
Yeah, so each team has an owner, like an NFL or a hockey owner.
QB,
and I don't understand how it works.
QB, sit there. You sit there and televise guys playing poker, Texas Hold'em, all that. Been doing it for 30 years or 20 years, whatever. This would be like me sitting there watching somebody pull a slot machine. Okay, I don't like looking at people at slot machines in real life. If I had to watch that on television, I think I'd be physically ill. And this is the kind of stuff that makes me ill. I can't stand this stuff. It's pretend stuff. It doesn't make sense. Give me Patrick Rogers coming off a big week last week. I think he's going to come. He's going to go back to back. have a good week.
Okay, so that's your fourth and final pick. Give me Fred Biondi's playing in this.
Yeah, I saw that.
Well, good for Fred. I'm not picking Fred though. I'm going to take Harry Hall.
Harry Hall. Wow. Okay.
Aaron Rye.
R-A-I.
That's going to have trouble looking these. R-A-I is his last name.
R-A-I there, Zachary. Thank you for keeping up with us. Big shout out.
JC is swamped doing his duties.
Well, sometimes you have to delegate things in life, QB. So I'm going to give a big shout out to a very loyal listener and viewer of our show from the Punta Gorda area. We have taken over that city. We own Port Charlotte, Punta Gorda now. We've absolutely dominated and taken over that area with this podcast. And that would be my good friend who I played twice with in the Bahamas, Walt Bethel. Good to have us. Good to have you with us. Look forward to having lunch with you today, Walt. And it'll be good to see you again, brother. So it's just about coming together and bringing folks together here on the podcast, folks. Gator fans and everything else that you like is available on this show. And right now we got some spring teams that are going to run hot. We got a basketball team that's out of their mind hot right now. So. It's very exciting. And by the way, QB, just to keep you grounded, because you do get excited when you see these teams play sometimes. When I was in the Bahamas, Florida scored 40 against Tennessee. So let's just remember,
look, JC.
Let's just
JC.
keep it all in together there. Keep it together.
If anybody needs to be grounded, it will be you, because you get excited when one team wins the game and then they lose the game, then they're terrible. I'm just telling you, I've been on this team since whenever the date of the Gasparilla Bowl was.
That's right.
I told Chris Harry, we argued in the press box over this.
Oh, okay. Well, no, that's good. That's good. I mean, it is good to see these guys play the way they're playing. They're deep right now. They're very deep.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even care. They don't need to be deep, in my opinion. Play your best players and let's go play. Sometimes I think the depth thing is overrated because, as Chris Harry told us, Todd Golden will not play 10 players. 9 is the most he will play. So when Condon and who else? Alexis come back, somebody's going to be out of the rotation. So anyway,
I get it. But these tournament games are just different animals, dude. You know that.
All right, JC. Have fun playing golf in the rain today.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Say hi to Kevin, and we'll see you folks on Friday.
All right, that's JC joining us on the Titan More Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. We're going to take a quick timeout. When we come back, we'll be joined by the Gainesville Sun's Kevin Brockway, get his thoughts on the basketball team. He thinks I'm crazy. I don't give a damn if I'm crazy or not. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the International Diamond Center Studios. We'll be right back.
Our premium sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union,
International Diamond Center,
Meldon Law, QC Kinetics, Dave & Buster's, UF Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute, JF Hayden Craft Liqueurs, Florida Cracker Kitchen, Los Linderos Tequila. Gridiron sponsors are Baker Sporting Goods, Cogent Bank, Comfort Temp, Electronics World, Florida Victorious, Gallo Car Wash, Miapa Latin Cafe, Peachland Dental, Quality Plumbing, Ruse Ogre State Farm, Silverback Concrete, 84 Lumber, Big Meals Cheesesteak, Celebrate Primary Care, Dowling Sign, Gator Bait Media, Gator Dominoes, Ironwood Golf Course, Okido America, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, UF Bookstores, Nest and Wow, MG&A Wealth Management. Watch and listen to us live on Facebook and YouTube. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. To become a sponsor, call my man Freddie at 352-284-3733.
Unleash the Inferno.
Naysayers, setbacks, injuries. Life throws a lot of hurdles your way. The key is just keep jumping them.
Welcome back to the International Diamond Center Studios. Go check them out, folks. Fine jewelry, watches, and much more. It's family owned and operated with the largest selection of natural diamond jewelry. There are also many car washes in Gainesville, but only one Gallo car wash, locally owned by UF alum, and the only car wash that provides NIL opportunities to Gator athletes. Locations Northwest 13th Street and Southwest Williston Road, and coming soon to Jonesville. Zach, do we have Kevin on yet? Okay, we're waiting on Kevin Brockway. We'll get him here in just a second. Let's see here. Got a couple of YouTubers I want to read here. North Florida Bear says on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. When playing golf, for instance, some people are pretty good on the range or even on the course. Put money on it and they fold. That clutchness is a talent too. I couldn't agree more with that. I can't tell you how many people I play golf with that are good, just goofing around. And then if you actually have to play for something, they ain't got a chance. Let's go to the Titan MRI hotline, courtesy of Comfort Tent. We're joined by the Gainesville Sun's Kevin Brockway. Good morning, Kevin. How you doing, buddy?
Good morning, Shane. How are you?
Doing all right. We got a couple questions already for you here. AU Gator on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, says, in reference to Kevin's article, was David Booz ever considered to replace Mary Wise, as he has been with Mary for, I believe, 15 years. Thanks, and go Gators. I may have pronounced his name wrong. I'm not sure or not, but you want to respond to that, Kevin?
Yeah, I think that, certainly was a consideration, but I think Scott probably wanted to go someone with, head coaching experience and someone that was in the Mary Wise family. So he made the decision, certainly that he did. And when you take a look at Tice and what he's accomplished, at Marquette and at Ohio, and someone that's been in that chair, he went that route, and obviously certainly someone that worked under Mary as well, albeit for a shorter period of time. And that's the direction they decided to go.
Yeah. So, all right, Kevin, let's switch gears. Hoops last night, another blowout in the O'Connell Center. Team is just clicking on all cylinders right now, making shots. We know the depth is there. Got a couple guys that are hurt. They'll be back eventually, but this team continues to play at a high level.
Yeah, Shane, it's really amazing when you look at, their ability to they've shown a little bit of ability to withstand adversity here in this 5-game winning streak. First Elijah Martin goes down, then Alex Condon, and they don't skip a beat. I mean, it's 5 straight games where they scored 80 plus, really humming. And, I wrote an article today basically about, whether they could win it all, their thoughts on how good they could be in March. And Porter Moser, who knows a thing or two, right, about Final Four teams. He coached Loyola Chicago, says, hey, look, they have all the pieces. Kind of compared them to that Kansas team 2 years ago. Deep shooting ability. They can score inside. They can defend. And I think that they've got a lot of pieces. The defense, I think Handlogden, that's where he shows up. His ability to block and alter shots gives them a little bit more, rim protection inside to go at Rubin. And if you saw the first half of that Oklahoma game, they defended really well. And if they can be that locked in defensively in March, I think that, you got a chance to see this team, do some special things.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, just the more I watch them, what I love about Todd Golan and his offensive approach, they spread the floor. And if you're open, you take the shot. And he doesn't get upset if you miss shots or whatever. They just keep firing away. And I kind of relate it to football from a passing game standpoint. You miss some throws, you throw a couple interceptions, you keep firing. You don't turn around and start running fullback dive, right? I just love the way that they just constantly put pressure on the opposing team. We penetrate, we dish it out to the 3, and we take the shot. Now, obviously, you got to make those. If you miss them all, it's going to be a long day. But right now, they're knocking them down. I don't know why I like the way they play. I mean, do you like their offensive approach at all?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, it's the way to go analytically, and they started that game 2-8 from three, and
Right.
then they made seven of their next 12. So they just kept firing, like you said, and Billy Donovan used to say you got to take them to make them, and I think that's that's part of it. You just got to keep going along, but they've got obviously some guys that can they have the personnel to do it, and I think Walter Clayton said yesterday, you look at a gym and you see a guy next to you that knocks down 7 or 8 in a row in practice, and it gives you confidence to give him the ball behind the line. And even on a night when, Denzel Aberdeen, who had been red hot, kind of cooled off, then you have a guy like Elijah Martin who steps up and hits threes. There's just multiple, I think over the last, during this 5-game winning streak, they've had at least 5 or 6 different players hit threes in all 5 of those games. So it's coming from multiple areas, and that makes it so much harder to defend when you have so many guys. I mean, Thomas Houck is another guy that's a stretch 4 that can hit him. Alex Condon, when he's healthy, has shown that he can hit him occasionally. So I think when you have that depth and that ability of multiple guys that can do it, it just makes it that much harder to scout and defend.
Question on YouTube brought to you by Quality Plumbing. Mark says, is Florida a lock to go to the West region, or could that change? I'm going to let you answer. I'll go first. It can change for sure. Obviously, if Florida beats Alabama, I think right now most models have Auburn, Alabama, Florida, and Duke as the 1 seeds. Is that right, Kevin?
Yeah, well, that's, the NCAA selection committee reveal came out on Saturday, and they had, Florida as the 1 seed in the West. But then, that was before Alabama lost to Auburn. So, I mean, right now, Florida's a 3 overall seed. I mean, I could see them going to Indianapolis. I think Duke is kind of locked into Newark in the East because they draw really well up there, and it kind of makes sense for them to be in the East region. But, Todd Golden says Saturday, hey, look, we're playing for the number 1 overall seed. And if they get the number 1 overall seed, then that's Atlanta. I think they'll have to win out and win the SEC tournament to probably do that. Or have Auburn lose some games, but that's a possibility. Or maybe Indy, and maybe if they're the 3 seed, they'll want to play in the Midwest rather than going all the way out to the West Coast.
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard to be the number 1 overall seed unless Auburn loses at least 2 games, because, correct me if I'm wrong, Auburn has like 13 quad 1 wins and the Gators have like 4 or 5. Is that right? I could have sworn.
And that's the thing, that Auburn's non-conference schedule, Bruce Pearl really loaded up. Certainly playing in Maui, playing Purdue. They got a lot of quality non-conference wins, whereas Florida, unfortunately, you're expecting North Carolina probably going into the season to be a better team. They weren't. So that's hurting them a little bit. I mean, Arizona State, it just wasn't the same level of a non-conference schedule that Auburn had, but listen, there's something to be said for, the team that's playing the best at the end of the season, too. It's not all, the net and metrics. I mean, the committee takes a little bit of eye test in the play and who's playing well at what time. So, I think there's a chance, Shane, that they could jump them. But, yeah, they're going to have to play at a really high level or hope that Auburn slumps down the stretch.
Yeah, I think a lot of Gator fans don't realize how many quad 1 wins Auburn has, even though the Gators went to Auburn and won. They're going to weigh the quad 1 wins more than head-to-head probably, unless they end up having kind of the same record or what have you. Large Fry says, until Auburn loses to someone that's not number 2 or number 3, they'll be the number 1 overall. Well, we'll see. They're still got ball left to be played. Looking at the rest of the regular season schedule, what is there, 5 games left? You're at LSU, I think, Saturday night, and then it's kind of a tough stretch. You got A&M, Alabama, and Ole Miss, all ranked teams. What do the Gators need to do, in your opinion, to make sure they stay as at least one of the 4 number 1 seeds?
Yeah, got to defend, got to, continue. I thought Texas A&M would be a tricky game, but they went and they got blown out by Mississippi State last night. But they're still a very dangerous team under Buzz because they defend really hard. I mean, that's a game that, maybe could be in the 60s and the 70s, depending on how it goes. But most of the other games, I mean, you got Georgia. You go to Georgia, Mike White's team beat Kentucky at home, right? But they've been struggling lately. But, there'll still be that kind of revenge factor there, that rivalry factor, and Georgia hasn't beaten Florida. So I think the last four, Ole Miss at the end of the season, Chris Beard is another good defensive coach. But Alabama will be a shootout. I can see that Alabama game, being very similar to that Kentucky game to start the season, where both teams will be in the hundreds. But and maybe Florida this time will come out on the right side of that. But they've the way they're playing right now, Shane, they got a pretty good chance to run the table in the regular season and get to the SEC tournament in a really good shape to lock down that number one seed, I think.
James in Lexington, Kentucky says, Kevin, who do you think takes the Indiana job?
Who do I think takes the Indiana job? An under the radar name I've been hearing lately is Greg McDermott at Creighton.
Oh, wow.
I think he's an interesting guy, and he's had a lot of success. He almost took the Ohio State job a few years ago. Mick Cronin does not like to travel at UCLA. So I don't know if he's a guy that would be somewhat in the mix or a guy that would have some interest because he's a Midwest guy. But the pipe dream is Brad Stevens. I don't see that happening at this point. But it's gonna be an interesting search, Shane. I mean, it's gonna be something that I'm sure they'll make an overture. Dusty too, but I just can't see Dusty leaving after 1 year at Michigan. And look what he's doing up there, by the way. I mean, they're contending for a Big Ten title in their first year. And I mean, Indiana really missed the boat on that. They probably should have let Woodson go last year, but there was a groundswell of support from, Quinn Buckner and within the higher ups at the Board of Trustees there that gave him one more year and it backfired. It didn't work out, and timing is everything. But McDermott would be an interesting guy.
Yeah, I think he's a really good coach. Miapalatin Cafe, discover the ultimate Cuban culinary experience at Miapalatin Cafe. 5 locations in Gainesville and Alachua, never far from the best Cuban food north of Miami. A few more minutes. With Kevin
one more
Brockway
name to watch, Shane. I forgot to mention for the Indiana job, Q, and there's a little bit of groundwell support from Kurt Zignetti on this, is Byington at Vanderbilt. That's another guy because of his JMU ties.
Yeah, well, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Indiana will have the James Madison football coach and the James Madison basketball coach. That would be something else. I think he's a really good coach, though, man. When I watched, we played them at home, didn't we? Vanderbilt. We played at our ballpark.
Yeah, and they played Florida pretty tough.
The way they spaced the floor, and they really set picks and their angles. I always talk about when you drive to the basket, it's all about angles. And I thought Vanderbilt was as good as I've seen in a long time. Large Fry, question for you, Kevin, on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. I feel like the only 2 weaknesses for the Gators is that we fall asleep sometimes on D and have a hard time creating points without relying on 3-point shots. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree. I think that, but I do think they get to the line a lot. And I do think that, like I said, this team has so many shooters that it's hard to imagine, when you've got 5 or 6 guys that can make 3-pointers, I think, you're going to expect at least 1 or 2 to have a hot night, So I've never seen, certainly, you look at the Tennessee game. I mean, Tennessee really got in their grill from the 3-point line and took it away. I mean, if I'm defending Florida, that's what I do. I just really try to get in there and harass you. But that's a hard style to play on the road or in a neutral floor. And even Porter Moser talked about this last night. He was basically saying, hey, we went out, we tried to extend on those guys, and they were just hitting 25-footers. He was talking about the depth of the 3-pointers and the ability of, Walter Clayton and just some of those guys having that deep range. I go back to, maybe 10, 15 years ago to Irving Walker was that kind of guy because he was 5'8", but you have so many deep shooters on this team that can shoot basically NBA level threes that it makes it really hard to defend that way. But and it's harder to get in your grill and defend that way when you're facing the team, when you're the team at home, when Florida's at home or on a neutral floor too, because you're more likely to get calls and get to the foul line.
Yeah, it's an incredible shooting team. As I said, I still think it's the best shooting team I've seen the Gators ever have. William on the Titan of our text line wants to know, he said, I saw that Scotty Wilbekin was at the game last night. Is he playing overseas?
Yeah, he's a star in Turkey, and I talked to him last year. I did a 10-year anniversary for the Final Four team 2014, and he's still playing. He's very happy, and he's married. He said, most of those guys on that 2014 team are married and settled down. Will you get? And he's doing really well. And there was a time, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, where I think the Philadelphia Sixers made some overtures, but very similar to Nick Kalathis. They were so comfortable making so much money overseas that they just decided to stay there and like the lifestyle. And Scotty's, he's done pretty well over there, and they love him. And if you looked at his hair, he's definitely looks like he's living the European lifestyle. He's grown his hair out.
Yeah.
Looks like he's living his best life out there.
What does a guy like him being a star in Turkey make, just roughly? How much money can they make over there?
Oh yeah, he can make like $500,000 to $1 million. Yeah.
Okay.
They can.
That's
They
awesome.
They do really well there. Yeah, a lot of those European guys make six figures, and a lot of them they set them up with housing too and stuff and cars. And you'd be surprised. But I have heard stories too that they really work them there. Like the practices are not NBA practices. Like they really grind them over there. And the coaches can be different. I've also heard stories of some leagues, some owners can be a little bit late on their payments, so to speak. And I've heard stories about the arenas. They smoke in arenas, and sometimes they throw coins and stuff. So it's definitely a little different lifestyle out there for players.
Chris Paul, I don't know if it's CP3 chiming in here on YouTube. He says, assuming we have a 1 seed locked up, what's y'all's take on making a deep run in the SEC tournament versus going out early and guys getting some rest?
That's interesting, because if you looked at last year, right, Florida and Auburn made the SEC tournament finals, and Auburn won, and both teams got knocked out early, whereas Alabama and Tennessee bowed out on Friday, and they both made deep runs. Tennessee Elite Eight, to the Final Four. Alabama made it to the Final Four. It's interesting nowadays. I used to think that if you're good enough, it didn't matter. Like Florida, the 06-07 teams, won the SEC tournament both years, and they played on Sunday and they made it all the way there. But yeah, there is something to be said for it. I think the SEC again should really reevaluate, playing that Sunday game, rather than pushing it up to Saturday. I think that's like, not to mention not only the fact that the rest factor, but your tournament gets overshadowed because of Selection Sunday. It's like, you win the thing at 3:00, and at 5:00, everybody's talking about where you're going in the tournament. It's almost like you don't get that shine that you do when you play it on the Saturday, like the Big East and the ACC does.
Yeah, are they ever going to move that, you think, to Saturday?
I don't know. That's something
game?
that I think they feel like they're locked into that television window. But if I'm at the SEC spring meetings in Destin, that's the first thing I'm asking Greg Sankey. Or I found out today too that I am going to Nashville. So if I see Sankey there, I'll corner him and ask him about it.
There you go. Monty in Lynchburg, Virginia, on the Titan MR text line says, do you think that the debacle concerning Golden and the accusations about him will come back to haunt UF? I think I read that Golden was very unhappy how it was handled by the university.
Yeah, what in the fact of Todd leaving or in not staying, I don't know. You know what I mean? I think that this is getting a little further in the rearview mirror now, and if they make a deep run in March, I think that it's going to depend on what's out there, Shane. But I think that some healing is taking place, and I think Todd seems like he's comfortable and happy here. And if they continue to have success, and you build the program, you spend 3 years building it. People forget, that first year was 16 and 17. That was a rough first year. But there's been so much progress here. Why would you walk away from it? What he's done, and he's got a lot in the pipeline coming in as well.
Yeah, did he get an extension last year, Or am I dreaming
He
that?
did, yes. So, I mean, they bumped him last year. They bumped him from 3 to 4, and listen, they might bump him again. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't surprise me if Scott takes care of that and bumps him again. Maybe bumps him more in the neighborhood of $5 or $6 million a year. Getting closer to the elite coaches, because he's certainly, proven it with with how they've performed this season. And he seems like a guy that can really build a program. But we'll see what happens in March too, because March is tricky, as we know. But I think that obviously this year, what they've done, this is a historic season. You just want it to end the right way.
I lost my. Off this team right here, how many have no eligibility next year? It's Will Richard, Clayton Jr., and
Elijah
Martin. Okay, so those three will definitely not be on the roster. The others could go in the portal. They could stay as Gators or whatever. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
My last question for you. Out of all the SEC coaches, and you talked about Byington at Vanderbilt, possibly maybe being in the hunt at Indiana, do you see any of the coaches not being fired, but maybe taking other jobs?
Yeah, no, that's like people have mentioned Buzz Williams for Indiana too. I mean, or would Buzz want to go somewhere else? Dennis Gates, I mean, would he go to FSU? I wonder that. Is that a better job than Missouri at this point with the way things are going in the ACC? Probably not, but maybe if they throw a lot of money at him, maybe because he was a longtime Leonard Hamilton assistant. I mean, the other name I'm hearing for FSU is Luke Laux, who's a guy who is a Sacramento Kings assistant, who is a former FSU player as well. And he's younger and, would probably be cheaper and might get that job. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I think, I think McMahon down at LSU is on the hot seat. Some people think that Porter Moser is on the hot seat a little bit, based on what's going on at Missouri or Oklahoma, or Moser might be a guy that would jump to a job as well. But I don't know what his, market is at this point, given the fact that Oklahoma has struggled a little bit in the Big 12 and the SEC since he's been there.
Yeah. Good stuff as always, Kevin. Let everybody know how they can follow you on Twitter and read your stuff at the Gainesville Sun.
Yeah, Gatorsports.com and Gainesville.com and at Kevin Brockway G1.
Appreciate your time, my man. Have a good week, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right.
That's Kevin Brockway joining us on the Titan More Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. I want to thank him and JC for joining us. Tomorrow we'll have Brent Beard and we'll have Mike Morgan from the SEC Network. Have a great day, folks. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.